Welcome to the Prosperity Podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to drop the hustle and earn more. I'm your host, Danielle Amos, business and success coach, certified Proctor Gallagher Institute consultant, and lifestyle entrepreneur. Each week, I'll bring you amazing entrepreneurs who have built wealth, harnessing the power of their mind. Prosperity and money are truly about energy, and I'm on a mission to help you create financial abundance through the power of thought. It's time we started normalizing conversations about money and create the wealth that is yours. Are you ready? Let's do this. Welcome to episode 118. I am Danielle Amos, and I am your host of the Prosperity Practice, the podcast that has you living your most abundant life. Today's podcast is a snippet from a powerful training that I did with a group of clients. This idea of persistence, how to persist, how to continue moving forward with the energy of the goal achieved and not get into this force energy. The truth is force negates. And this is a really powerful understanding or awareness that can make the biggest difference, especially this time of year when most of us probably feel like forcing the goal to come together because it may not seem like it already is. But here's the truth. It is coming together. Enjoy this session. And if you have any questions, reach out. Tag me on social media, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Persistence is key. It is a key component to success. And so today we're going to talk about persistence, like even the word, because the concept itself has different meanings for different people, because we're going to talk about what it is and what it is not. Because sometimes when you think of persistence, just check in for yourself on that word and what you think it means. Because a lot of people, in my experience, when they think they're being persistent, they're actually forcing. Can you feel that? If you're close to your goal, let's say, think about the end of December when it comes around and you're not quite there yet. Do you go into force mode? Or are you persisting? Because they're different energies. And the same thing in June. Persistence and force are very different. And it's super important that we understand the feeling of them in our body. So it's important to persist, but if you're actually forcing, force causes resistance towards your goal. And force negates. So that's a good, I want you to write that down. Force negates. Anytime that I feel like I'm forcing, I'm negating. Now, as a mom, that this can also be used in your life at home, whether it's with a partner or your kids, or maybe you're a team or your staff. For those of you who anytime we force something, you're actually moving what you want to happen further away from you. So kids wanting them to clean their room and you try to force, how well does that go? Not so well. Not so well. So and here's the thing, force and persistence, it's a really fine line. So let's talk about persistence and what it is. Persistence is its essential factor for success. Napoleon Hill talks about this. And at the base of persistence is will, the power of will. So what is will? Well, will is one of your mental faculties. It's a mental muscle that you have in your mind. And will is not force as well. Willpower is not forcing. If you force yourself not to eat the chocolate cake when you're on a diet, I bet you by Saturday you're eating chocolate cake. And Napoleon Hill talks about will plus desire are an irresistible pair. So will is a mental muscle. It's your ability to focus on one thing to the exclusion of all other things. Will is your ability to focus on one thing to the exclusion of all other things. And when you combine will with desire, so desire is this red hot desire, which is like the why behind what you want, right? And there's a quote that I've been loving. It's like the stronger the why, the easier the how. When you have a strong why to why you want this, and you've got a clear picture for yourself, because if you don't have a picture, it will never happen. Not possible, because thoughts become things. Thoughts become things. You got to hold it in your mind in order to hold it in your hand. And so this persistence is the will at work. And your will is a mental muscle, just like, and you have other mental muscles. You got imagination, intuition, memory, reason, and perception are your other mental muscles. And it's our job to understand how to work these mental muscles. It's not taught in school. The mental muscles we're not even told that we have these muscles. So for a lot of us, this is new. Like, we've got to learn, how do I use my imagination? It's weak, or reason's the other mental muscle. I didn't say reason. So, and how you strengthen them is by working them out, literally taking your mind muscles to the gym, the mind gym. They've got to be exercised and used to strengthen. And in today's world, most people have a weak will muscle. Wouldn't you agree? And I think there's a lot of studies that say it's because of social media and like screens and la la la. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Doesn't really matter why. It just is the case that you may be talking to someone and they're like easily distracted. You ever notice that? You might have someone in front of you. Well, that's weak will muscle. They're not able to focus very long. And this is a problem when it comes to success. In fact, Napoleon Hill says the number one reason for failure is lack of persistence. Number one reason for failure is lack of persistence. So then we get to check ourselves up here. Like, we get to check on ourselves. Persistence, like, are you persistent in your focusing that will muscle on what you want, your desire, rather than what you don't want? And it's that easy. So there's the bucket of what you want, and then everything outside of that is what you don't want. Persistence comes in, and willpower, because you have a choice. So are you going to focus on what you want or focus on what you don't want? And it's very easy to focus on the things you don't want. It sounds crazy. And we were programmed like this in society. Think about this. It was never more obvious to me than when I first started this, and I would hear what I say to my daughter. She'd be running in the parking lot full of cars at like 3. I'm like, don't run. I'm literally enforcing what I don't want. I don't want her to continue to run. Do you see that? But I'm just like, it's a habit for me to say, don't run, because I'm reacting. But what do I want? Eloise, please walk safely. So many times we're programmed to speak this way, to talk about what we don't want. And the universe does not hear, I want to be debt free. It only hears debt, and it gives you more debt. It doesn't hear it. And the same thing for you. So you might even be thinking that you're focusing on what you want by saying debt free, but you're actually focusing on what you don't want because of the word debt. Is that clear to everybody? So this is normal. This is the way that we were programmed. But here is a simple fact. You are going to get more of what you focus on. What you focus on grows. And so if you are focusing on what you don't want, you're never going to get what you want. So with persistence now, persistence as a quality, as a characteristic, has a flip side. Meaning, often people that are successful who are persisting in their careers or in their life, the outside world will say things like them, like they are cold-blooded, ruthless, a rich biatch, right? We're called names because of our persistence, because of the perception of the people watching you. This is the flip side of the persistence quality. Persistence as a quality, when others on the outside world are watching you go, they might say, oh, she's ruthless. She's willing to do whatever it takes. You see what I'm saying? Oh, I've heard, oh my gosh, you're so obsessed with your goal. You're willing to do anything for that. And if we're not careful, we can accept those ideas and those perceptions that other people have of us when we're persisting. And that causes you to take your foot off the gas and stop persisting. And so there's a flip side. You've got to be willing to be okay with how you're perceived on the outside with persistence. And I've talked about this with leaders across the board, because your ability to hold the image of what you want, using your will muscle in your mind, it becomes like an obsession. And that word itself can have a negative thing, but it's a magnificent obsession. There's actually a book called Magnificent Obsession, and it's a good obsession, and it's absolutely necessary for you to persist this way. And one of the greatest lessons that I believe all of us as leaders, as successful people, is you must give up what other people think of you. And the truth is, family, friends, they might not like to see your persistence, because oftentimes it shows them where they haven't been persistent, where they've been settling, and it becomes obvious. Are you okay with that? Now, it doesn't mean that you've got to be mean or anything, but it's just you want to stay focused despite what happens on the outside. So here's the truth. The truth is, most people give up at the first sign of persistence or adversity or an obstacle. Most people give up. And they say things like, and I hear it in society, oh, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Do you hear that? No, here's the thing. It was meant to be. Like, I'm like, what? According to who it's not meant to be? Because an obstacle came? Now you're going to give up on this goal, or you're just going to like back off? And this is where that fine line, because force versus persistence, they're different energies. But just because you hit a roadblock, it's not meant to be. I'm like, no, thank you. No. Instead, a roadblock, an obstacle, adversity is actually a good sign. It's good. Why? Because the whole purpose of a goal, of your desire, is to grow. And if your whole career is rainbows and sunshines and la, 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 there's very little learning. You stay within your comfort zone. It's not until you are faced with roadblocks, obstacles, and adversity that you actually grow. You're actually able to see what you're made of. Like, when you put the goal, that when you made that decision, when you planted the stick in the ground, when you opened yourself up to attract obstacles, adversities, roadblocks. However, it does mean that you've got to learn from it. You've got to learn from whatever you're attracting so that you can get on the other side. So you move through it. You don't shrink when the problem happens. You stand up and you face it and you move through it and you learn from the other side. So all that you're attracting is you're attracting it for you. so that you can grow and get outside of your comfort zone. Now so here's the thing, like this is an attitude that I'd like you to invite for you to have. It's like, rather than like, oh no, roadblock. Oh, instead, it's like, this is an obstacle for me to grow, because on the other side, there's good stuff like my goal. Thank you, universe. I love you because you're sending me this, because you know that I got this. And all I have to do is persist through this and move through this, but while holding the image of my goal achieved on the screen of my mind, which takes willpower, which takes persistence, because you know what? The old me, when this would have happened, I would have shrink back down. So now when you get a no, when you get a roadblock, anything, it's like, what is my response to this? It's your response to the thing that happens that makes all the difference. Am I going to react and shrink? Or am I going to be like, I got this? On the other side of this is growth. Like, really, no kidding. And here's the truth. Very few people are willing to keep going when they're faced with a problem. So here's the thing. You have a choice to stay in the bubble or to persist no matter what. So play small, roses and sunshine, all day, perfect little bubble, stay where you are, or persist. And your willingness is then to be uncomfortable. By definition, obstacles are a good thing. And you persist through it. And this is a skill that you must develop. Once you develop this skill of persistence, this muscle of persistence, you become unstoppable. And Napoleon Hill says that the character of persistence is like carbon is to steel. It's essential. It's essential. You cannot not be persistent. Mainly, you're creating the discipline in your mind, but also in your action. So, here is the thing. You know what to do and you don't do it, but you don't want to beat yourself up on it. So when you're working out your persistence muscle, you persist to the best of your ability and you go again the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. All you have is your best. Got it? Well, that was a powerful session. Thank you so much for joining. And like I said, if it resonates, please share this on social media and tag me and DM me with questions. Let's get you connected to the goal achieved and identify that one thing that's been holding you back. Perhaps it's your desire to force your goal. Thank you so much for listening. Expect abundance.